my name is Holly and it is wonderful to see you. It has been a couple months since I have filmed a video in this setting here in my room and just kind of talking to you one-on-one. I have recently been posting and just completed, actually on Sunday, completed posting our last Disney trip adventure vlog series. So we were there in the parks right after Labor Day for a full week at Walt Disney World, and I vlogged and filmed every single day. Each day we were in the parks. So if you've not checked out that video series, there are 7 videos for you to enjoy. Several videos of our resort tours, several videos of our theme park days, and just lots of good kind of fun family friendly content around Disney World and our family vacation. We did a road trip down there, so I vlogged a little bit about that. We stayed a night at the Swan and Dolphin Resort, which I've always wanted to stay at, and I vlogged about that. And then we also stayed for 6 nights at the Pop Century Resort, which I had never stayed at. So lots of good stuff. I would appreciate it if you are interested in those topics to go back and watch that series, because what I'm going to be doing today is actually kind of, breaking down our trip with our highs and our lows. As it turns out, vlogging is quite difficult with a family, and I was certainly prepared for it to be tough, but it was my first time actually vlogging, kind of trying to vlog more full-time with my kiddos. I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and then my sister and her husband and their family of 4 teenagers, mostly the kiddos are now, were there as well. So I tried to be respectful of not putting my own family on film, on the camera too often, and nor, my sister and her family, to respect their privacy. So it was a little tricky to navigate, how much to film and who to put on camera. So I didn't get as much as I maybe would have liked, but I certainly have learned a lot from the process. And what I learned was that often I don't have a lot of time in the heat of the moment to explain like how we liked this particular ride, or what we thought of our meal, or how our day went, or what we really thought of the resort. So I thought, you know what I'm gonna do now that that video series is live, all 7 videos are up for you to enjoy. I'm gonna go ahead and go back through and talk about our high points and our low points in all these different categories. So I've made notes to keep myself on track. So if you see me glancing down, it's because I'm refreshing my my memory on what I have written down in each category. And I think we should just jump right in. I've got a lot of ground to cover. So I thought in the very first category, we should just talk about, in general, what were some of our, our top highs for this trip. And I would say a high for me was just getting to go. I mean, it was September 2020. The world as we have known it has completely changed, and to be able to go to Disney World in any capacity at any level was a huge high for us. We had already canceled 2 different Disney trips and a Disney cruise in 2020, so being able to be back in the parks, while certainly different and with a lot of changes in policies and procedures and some things missing that we really enjoyed, being there at all was just a huge high for us. Another high would be our kids' excitement. As I mentioned, they're 4 and 2, and so we have been taking them since they were tiny, and just to watch them mature and grow and become more and more excited about the trips, have more energy to do things, get really pumped up about the next thing we're going to do. Just their enthusiasm in general, seeing Mickey and Minnie even from a distance was just like, Mickey, Minnie. I mean, it was so much excitement. And then, they're starting to get to ride some of their bigger coasters. My son Sawyer got to ride Slinky Dog and the Millennium Falcon, and so they're getting bigger, and it's so precious. It's such a high to get to watch them experience it and to kind of relive the magic through their little faces. It's precious, it's priceless. It's always got to be a top high for the trip for me. Now, lows, to switch right to the negative, would have been for us this particular time, and this is definitely COVID related, is the food. There are so many things still closed that were closed in September, and some of it hasn't come back yet. A lot of restaurants, the mobile order is kind of the preferred method, and they really are almost, and I love Disney cast members, but they're almost pushy about the mobile order. Got a question about the menu, good luck. Want to go in just to get a cup of water? No, they're not letting anyone in the restaurants unless they have placed their mobile order and have a screen on your phone or your tablet showing that your order is complete and you can go pick it up. And obviously this is for the safety of everyone and trying to keep the crowds low in the restaurants and in the food courts and things like that, but it really made it difficult in times past with kiddos. One of us goes and orders the food while the other one, gets the kids settled, gets high chairs, wipes down the, the table, and, gets everything ready, condiments, cups, all that stuff, while the other person goes and pays and gets the order. And this time there is none of that. There's no, scoping out a spot. Let's go see if there's a spot here, or some room in the AC. You don't get in unless your food is ready. And at that point, if there's no open tables in the restaurant, of course you'd have to come back out. So there's a lot of back and forth. So the food in general, the selection of the restaurants that were open, and then the ones that even were open, what they had on the menu was greatly reduced. And so we're huge foodies. We love the food, we love the restaurants, and it was a big letdown. It was a lot of quick service. It was a lot of kind of poor quality quick service, and then just the whole mobile order and the hoops you have to go through now to, find a safe spot to sit and eat, and to just actually retrieve your food from the restaurant was quite difficult. So that was a big low for us. A second big low was the weather. We were there right after Labor Day for a full week, and those huge summer rains were still lingering on, and it poured rain every afternoon for hours, torrential rain. So no amount of ponchos or stroller covers was going to keep everything completely dry. I was bringing an extra change of clothes every day for the kids and having to switch them out after some of these big rains. And then we ended up one day having to buy beach towels because we just got all drenched. So the stroller took a beating, and our shoes took a beating, but mostly it was the highs certainly outweigh the lows on almost all of these categories. But those were my general trip highs and lows. Now let's talk about the resort highs and lows. And as I mentioned, we stayed in 2 different resorts, so I will do each of them quickly. The first resort that we stayed at the longest was Pop Century. Some of the highs for us was the room layout. If you haven't had a chance to look at that video, I'm going to go ahead and separate our room tour out from the daily vlog, so it's a little shorter and more compact. Go ahead and take a look at that. That room layout is excellent for families. It has a large floor plan that's kind of like, it feels like more square footage than you actually have because of the way it's laid out. The novelty of it, of course, is that Murphy bed that folds down from the wall, and at nighttime when you need it, and then folds back into the wall and becomes a little table and chairs during the day. So it makes it feel like you've got quite a bit more space. The elevated bed, the full queen bed that's in the room, the standard bed, not the fold down one, but the standard one, is quite high off the ground and elevated, so there's lots of storage for suitcases and things underneath to keep the room tidy. There's several little cubbies tucked around for miscellaneous items, shoes, toiletries, phones, so a lot of storage to kind of keep your stuff off the floor and picked up. And then of course the sliding doors on the bathroom give a lot of privacy. There's a sliding door between the toilet and the shower, and then a sliding door in the actual bathroom where the sink and the vanity and the the little closet there. So the doors take up hardly any space because they slide, and they give you quite a bit of privacy for a family that's all together in one room. So Pop Century, excellent layout. That hardwood floor, it felt clean, it felt fresh, it's sleek, modern, it doesn't feel cluttered. So the room layout was awesome. A second high is the Disney bubble. Just being in that Disney bubble, we did feel safer. COVID rules were enforced and were being adhered to, almost 100% across the board. So just being in that Disney bubble, knowing that everyone was, more or less following the Disney protocols for temperature checks at resorts and mask coverage all the time whenever you're outside of your room, it felt safer for us. We appreciated that. Because, as I will mention here in a minute, the night that we stayed at the Swan and Dolphin, even though it is an on-property Disney hotel, It's not owned by Disney, so the policies were a little bit less strict, and people certainly were taking advantage of that, and kind of abusing that and really not doing a great job. So being on a Disney resort on property felt more secure because they are controlling those COVID rules and restrictions to a greater extent. So some of the lows for Pop Century. The huge standout is the food court. I mean, like I said just a few minutes ago, we had a really rough time with food, and the Pop Century food court gets the lowest grade I could possibly give it. I mean, and we ate there several times, so it's not like it was a one-off meal. I think probably why it stands out so greatly in my mind is because it was so bad, and we kept going back thinking, oh, it couldn't have been that bad. Let's try something different on the menu. But we had the pizza, we had salads, we had several different breakfast items. The coffee, oh, the coffee, it's so bad. It's so bad. So bad. I finally switched to iced coffee because the Joffrey's coffee, and I know there are some Joffrey lovers out there, the Joffrey's coffee, the way it's roasted, it just tastes sour to me. It's too acidic. It kind of tastes like the coffee has like been spoiled. We had burgers. My husband had a burger that must have been sitting under a heat lamp, the actual hamburger patty, and it was like a hockey puck. The French fries, you know, everything they try to package to go, and again, I applaud them for it and I understand it, but you know, there's some things that need to change. French fries in a styrofoam container, they're not even gonna last 60 seconds before they're completely mush. So food was rough. Pop Century, I'm sorry, it was rough. And transportation was rough. I put that in my vlog for sure. You're gonna see one instance when we're getting in line to go to the Magic Kingdom early in the morning that the line was astronomical, and I do not think they were ready for it. The general manager was out there in his suit and tie, sweating his face off, apologizing to everyone he could make eye contact with, assuring people that more buses were coming. But it was a super long zigzag line, of course socially distanced, and then wrapping around clear from the, you know, the bus stations, past the front entrance to the lobby, around the sidewalk, and out into the parking lot. It was a disaster. And then when we did the Skyliner, we were super excited to try the Skyliner, and we found the same. It took us an hour and 20 minutes to get into Epcot one morning, and it was just a queue for as long as you could see. And then of course, because you're at Pop Century, you get in a Skyliner, and then you get to another Skyliner station, have to disembark and get in an additional line and wait another 30 or 40 minutes to get back on the Skyliner to go to Epcot. So we had our car, and so after those two bad experiences, we ended up taking our car and driving to the parks and finding it infinitely more efficient than Disney's transportation. Now again, this is just an honest feedback from our trip. I am not criticizing Disney. I understand they've had to lay off. I understand they can only hold so many parties in a socially distanced way on the Skyliners and on the buses. But if you're planning your Disney trip, these are things you should be aware of and should know. If you have any you know, extra budget for a rental car, it might be something to consider, because the bus situation, since we were there in, you know, early September, it's now early November, I've heard it's just as bad, if not worse, because the crowds are coming, you know, beginning to grow. So transportation, unfortunately, has always been a huge perk of being on property at a Disney resort in the past. I would say that the perk is diminished just because they cannot handle the capacity that they used to be able to handle. Swan and Dolphin, moving right along. The highs and lows of our Swan and Dolphin one night stay. I would say the high was that pool complex. Go back and check out that very first video. We loved it. It opened up super early in the morning, which when you have little kids is like, hallelujah. It's so nice. Our kids wake up early, and it's torture to try to entertain them for several hours until things start to open up. So the Swan and Dolphin had a beautiful pool complex with waterfalls and grottos and lap pools and quiet pools and a kiddie area and a beachfront with sand and swan boats. I mean, it has got to be one of the best pool complex on Disney property, and I have stayed at the Beach Club and love Stormalong Bay. So if you've stayed at Stormalong Bay, I would say Swan and Dolphin is a very, very, very close second. So that should give you some idea of how great that pool complex is. Lows for that resort was that it's a very confusing layout. We wandered around and they were super busy the night that we checked in. Now we checked in Sunday before Labor Day, so we should have known that it was going to be busy, but the staff was not, it was so stretched thin and so busy. They were really not able to help. So they gave us some very rudimentary instructions. Make sure you get on the west elevator, and that was kind of it. And so we wandered around for almost 40 minutes trying to find our room. So the room was 11:45, so we went to the 11th floor and walked and walked and walked and walked. And then after maybe 15 minutes of realizing this can't be right, we were like, oh, well, maybe it's maybe it's floor number 1. So we went all the way down, and floor number 1 appeared to be kids clubs and the gym and pool access. It did not appear to have any rooms down there. So I came back up and talked to somebody at the concierge desk, and they assured me, no, there are rooms down there. Just keep walking, keep going, past the ice machines, past the kids clubs, past the employee entrance. There are probably about, I don't know, a dozen rooms or so on that first level, and we were on the very first level. So after 45 minutes of wandering around a very confusing layout, we found our room. And then the room itself was nothing amazing for the price. I mean, I've seen Swan and Dolphin rooms go for over $300 a night easy. But it was a very standard Holiday Inn Express style room, you know, very basic. Nothing elaborate or fancy or posh. For that price, I would have expected a much more deluxe feeling room. In addition to that, our room had a smell of mold or mildew. That's possibly because it was on the first level, and in Florida it gets quite humid, of course, and so maybe it needed a dehumidifier. But for that price, to have kind of a mildewy, moldy smell in the room was a little bit off-putting, especially in a COVID time when we're all hoping that everything has been extra sanitized and extra clean and extra, you know, safe to stay in. That was a little off-putting for us. Now let's talk about restaurants. I said that we love to go out to eat. We mostly ate out in outdoor spots. So we would do takeout and then go sit outside and eat it, or we would do quick service since most of those, you know, the seating is already outdoors. But we did do a couple, and by a couple I mean the entire week we were there, we ate at 3 sit-down restaurants. And so I want to talk about our favorites and then our not so favorite. So our highs were Homecoming, which we always love. Excellent food, excellent service, just a really good menu. It's got comfort food, but it's kind of like elevated comfort food. It's got something for the kids, it's got something for mom and dad. It's always just a great quality food. So we went to Homecoming our first day there, loved it. And then for our big family meal with my sister and her family and our family, so a big party of 10, we went to the Boathouse. And I've gone before and really enjoyed it, but this time it was just a grand slam. They did everything wonderfully. They accommodated a party of 10. They allowed us all to sit together, which we were expecting to have to kind of be broken up because of COVID restrictions. The server was like, went over a million times nicer than I could have expected and more gracious for a party of 10. Super, super helpful, and make sure everybody got their sides and refills and you know, answering questions off the menu. And then the food quality is great. It's right on the water, beautiful ambiance, and excellent food. We got a lot of steaks and seafood items, which of course are their specialty. I got a lobster roll, my husband got the steak sliders, the kids had mac and cheese, and everybody really enjoyed that meal. So if you have not been to Homecoming, you are missing out. And if you have not tried Boathouse, the price point's a little higher, but it's a really great quality, just a beautiful restaurant, so worth your time for sure. A low for us was paddlefish. Now, this might be controversial. We have wanted to try paddlefish for years. It is the large riverboat right there at Disney Springs, right on the water. It always looks so beautiful, and the menu looks quite good. It has steak and seafood, things that we always would like. And I think my sister and her husband maybe chose better items because they seem to like their food, where my husband and I, we kind of thought our food was a bit of a dud. I got an appetizer that came highly recommended, which was the lobster corn dogs, which is basically like a skewer with lobster meat dipped in the the cornmeal batter and fried like a corn dog. And so the server went on and on about it, so I thought I would try them, and they were rubbery and tough and not very flavorful. And then I got a seafood dish, also nothing excellent. In fact, when I went, it's a month and a half later, and I'm going through my notes trying to remember what I had. I can't even tell you the name of the seafood dish I had because it was that forgettable. So unfortunately, we probably will not be trying paddlefish again, which is a shame because it is a really cool dining experience being on the riverboat, and it is a beautiful location. The restaurant itself was decorated very, very nicely and felt elegant and upscale and kind of a cool vibe. And the server, gosh, he was amazing. But the food, and that's primarily why you go to a restaurant, is for the food. The food was a miss for us. Now let's talk about quick service restaurants. As you know, it was pretty bleak, but we do have one standout for us, which I cannot believe I'm going to tell you this. Our high for a quick service restaurant this past Disney trip was Cosmic Rays, which if you're a Disney fan, you'll know Cosmic Rays rarely takes home any big accolades. It's that giant food court area over in Tomorrowland, but it had the freshest food that we encountered the entire week. It was hot, it was fresh, and they had some unique items. We got the Cheshire Cat tail, which I've wanted to try, and usually is over at the cafe there, kind of right next to the Teacups ride, but of course that's not been reopened. So the Cheshire Cat tail, which is a popular, chocolate pastry, has been moved to Cosmic Rays. So they had that. They had a lot of the hot dogs, which again used to be at Casey's Corner, but have been moved to Cosmic Rays. And they had a cool holiday Halloween burger, which is what I had. It's the monster burger with like tots and bacon and a chipotle aioli, and it was really good. The kids had hot dogs, peanut butter and jelly. My husband had a chili dog. So everybody was satisfied, and the food was the freshest quick service meal we had all week. Some of our lows, again, I'm not going to keep beating on poor Pop Century, but it was Pop Century's food court. It was rough. The hockey puck burger, the pizza was barely edible. I mean, it was a rough one. Now let's talk about some of the park highs. So we went to all 4 parks. Which park would we say was the ultimate high for us? Surprisingly, it was Hollywood Studios. I was ready for Magic Kingdom to be our favorite for the next, I don't know, 8 years because of our kids' ages. But Hollywood Studios really pulled it out. The kids loved it. Toy Story Land, I mean, it's excellent for kids. Every part of the theming and the rides, they're all very family friendly. Now Vivian was like a half an inch too short for Slinky Dog, which was a total bummer because then she didn't get to ride. And I mean, like, her hair bow was grazing the top. So potentially our next trip she'll be able to go, in which case it really will be the perfect land for our kiddos. They also really enjoyed Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. That was a great ride for them. Of course, they're into the, they're kind of into the Mickey shorts. And so, yeah, I wasn't expecting Hollywood Studios. I thought we would actually be leaving that park early, but we ended up closing it down, like walking down, Sunset Boulevard, some of the last families to leave. So it was a great park for us, a surprise, but a definite high for us this trip. Lows, I think, for our family was Epcot this time. It just, my husband and I love Epcot, do not get us wrong, but with little kids, it's almost too big. We came in on the International Gateway on the Skyliner, and we thought we would get, go straight to Frozen, but no matter which way you go around the World Showcase, it is a long walk to Norway. So in the meantime, the kids got bored, they got whiny, we had to stop and eat, and by the time we get to Frozen, the line is super long. And so it was just too much walking for the little ones, and then not enough attractions for our little kids. We didn't actually end up getting to go to Frozen, which was a big disappointment because it took us so long to get through to Norway that the crowd was so long. So we kept thinking we would go back and it just never happened. So it was a bit of a disappointment. I have more and we're already at 25 minutes. So I think I'm gonna have to break this into two. So be sure and look for the second half of our trip highs and lows. It was great chatting with you today. I hope some of this was helpful as you plan your trip. And we will talk very, very soon in part 2, where we will finish up the trip highs and lows. Thanks so much for following along. Be sure to like this video and subscribe if you can for more great Disney content. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.